So, hi.
Wait a second.
And the background. Okay, let's move on. We're ready. So, I'm also with the management background. I think my management title is the total LinkedIn bombing by being the one and only chief poltergeist officer, which is also kind of a culture thing. I kind of subtitle that with I move things in unexpected ways. I have also been in management side from the very young age. When I was 17, I was the last Komsomol secretary of Tallinn Realkool. So I also have learned by doing a lot of things. Currently, the most of the things I'm doing is related to Zone, where my official title is actually Marketing and Communications, which is kind of boring, and also Chief Data Protection Officer, which is even more boring and more scary. So I like to be going with all kinds of different titles. So what we are doing, we are the Estonia's largest web hosting company with presences in Estonia and Netherlands in Amsterdam. And we are selling some things which are costing like Kavanos and latte to people who are thinking they should cost even less and who are usually thinking that all of the stack that's there is managed by us and we are making everything secure, but the reality is a bit different. When I'm looking at one of our random servers, this is actual count of different web applications on one physical hosting server. I think there are, the number of sites is probably between 800 and 1,000. And these are the detected applications. Looks nice. So there is WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Magento, Joomla, WordPress, and so on. The details are not so important as the difference with the next picture. So all of these were different WordPress versions, and these are the ones which are up to date. By the way, I think we are coming to something like 12 or 16% of the applications on the server are actually patched. Most of them are very old. And that brings me to the situation where, well, the previous presenter was speaking about fictitious worlds, where you have monsters lurking around and you need to be out protecting everything. Then for us it's every day. Our job is the cyber oncology, to tell the code, which probably seems like normal code. From that one, if a code starts with socialism and capitalism and Communist Party, it probably is something malicious. And this one also, even when reading backwards, it still looks a bit malicious. So we're kind of feeling like this part of town. This is actually Dharavi slums from Mumbai. And as you see, the guy who took the photo I got from Flickr has been taking it safely from his car window because there are some guys doing something. And I think his choice is very wise. There probably isn't nothing he should be doing on the other side of this nicely decorated bridge. Unfortunately, we are living there. And for that, we try to get people to think more about actually securing their applications. And how do you do that? The only way I have found, which is also can be gamified, is actually helping them to search for vulnerabilities. So we have been doing things like helping some school kids who are doing their LAN parties. And I'm telling that, okay, your LAN party, which we are sponsoring with some Steam gift cards, is a very cool thing, but I'm putting another gift card here, which is like all of your team is going to get if you can hack into this box. And it is slowly gaining something that some guys are actually thinking that, okay, maybe I shouldn't just be concentrating on shooting them up. Maybe I should actually try to understand what's happening in the computers. And hopefully at some point we can get to the place where people are happy with that. So the text is, Zone doesn't know anybody who knows anybody who would not have started by hacking games. Which actually is true. I made a study in our company, and it turns out we don't know anybody who hasn't been started by doing something with games and something which is more or less illegal. In official educational spheres, it is problematic. This is actually from Tartu School's LAN party where my roll-up was up, and headmaster of school came and asked to wipe out the word Mängude hacking. So they nicely put the white paper there, and when the director went away, they took away and kept hacking anyway. So that's the attitude. So, and I started with very simple things like providing something which, what's that? But yeah, probably base 64. It took them on first year, I think, 2 hours to come to the idea that there is something. They were calling me and asking what's the hint, and they said, I know, hints on the roll-up, and they had probably assembled that into the physical pieces before coming to the question, oh, this can be somebody had called their older brother. So what's important with all things related to security, it is that the training is something that comes always first. This is actually my other hobby, which is voluntary marine rescue. So at the better days, we are looking very broad and nice, and on worse days, we are needed to go to swim without our dry suits. And actually, the most important picture is the one on the left. When you are talking about security or training people about security, you must use games and visuals which make people feel the pain in their inner core.
On somebody's ass?
Yes, yeah, it's an anchor. Anchor from, because this is a boating thing. If you look at this face, you can probably understand that there hasn't been a practical situation like that. But my own.
He's smiling because he's shocked.
Probably, yeah. This is just some kind of Stockholm syndrome or whatever. My own greatest fear in real marine rescue is one case from a couple of years ago, when I think it was on Aegna or Naissaar, where some guy during the Jaanipäev jumped over the bonfire and actually didn't jump over, but into that. So the team who went there had to tend somebody who had been in fire, and there was like 1.5 hour waiting until the ambulances were able to come and whatever. So I'm always thinking with all of the security situations about these things that can go wrong, and how to train myself to be actually ready, because until you haven't tried your secure things, then nothing can go better. This is actually from last year's 2017 Lock Shield, which is not only the greatest, but practically the only live fire cyber exercise. Everybody else is doing them on the desktop scenario basis. And this is Estonian blue team. Here are strategists. There are legal department. I came in over the Windows admins and the system admins. Here is the Linux admins, network admins, and somewhere there is Andres Reinman, and my desk was here on the website. So I had been actually in the zone for that time for like 1.5 years or so, and I had tried to see how I can detect the attacks and how I can protect our infrastructure and our customer sites from attacks. And now I was able to actually test and see if I am in unfamiliar territory, thrown into somebody else's network that is completely basically prepared by the red team, the guys who are going to attack, and if I'm able to protect that. So it was like 20 teams, 900 participants last year. That's our network from that time. That's the VIPs showing the same network. I'm just showing that it's looking similar. Green team builders, red team attackers, white team is they're called blondes. User simulation team. And yellow was, let's say, strategy evaluation is probably the best term for that. Blue team is not here because blue teams are in everybody's home country. They're connected over VPNs to the central playground. Some other pictures. This is the red team. Of course, you can't take pictures of red team, so that's all I got. And the network is something very classical. If you are taking into apart your own network, then it's probably similar. So what do we have? We have some kind of firewalls. There is internets coming in, some routers. There is demilitarized zone for everything that I was related to, like web servers and so on. Then there is operations of the play airport where we were working. And they are simulated by these blondes, who are actually most are not blondes and most are male, just to make sure that I'm not making any sensitive jokes. I'm making anyway, but whatever. Then there was lab. Well, this is actually basically like ops and demilitarized zone, but whatever can happen inside the networks because they are the labs guys. They are doing everything. So this is actually the disaster zone for everything. Then there was actually the plane operations of driving some kind of drones, flying around and keeping them up, providing video feed to headquarters and so on. And for the airport there was also power management system, meaning that if you lose power, you lose the game. Probably. And industrial control system for fuel handling. Also, again, what could be possibly going wrong when you are tanking fuel to airplanes? This is just fun and games. So both of these, like from the SCADA side, both built on actual Siemens industrial platforms. This is the view from the organizer's side. So they had video faults. This is actually the picture of the drone video feed that needed to go around. They tried to mess up and provide different kind of false feed there. These are the very, very fancy power system devices. These things attached here are actually pyrotechnics. So if somebody's power system failed, then there was a real pyrotechnics going bang and smoke, and I think there were even fans that were blowing that towards the jury. Okay, and when you're thinking, while you're designing these systems, you're probably thinking that, okay, these are all isolated systems and we are very, very nicely running them. But actually it turns out that the guys in the operations want to interact with all of the other things, which are probably on the other side of airport. And they must have connections. There is no such thing as cutting off the connections because people must do the work. Machines must think. Well, okay, and then in the same network are these lab guys. And this is actually an interesting picture because they put it on public website, but it has some part of the scheme that are missing from my one, what we knew about our network. There is something which is missing from here. Here is also something. Here is some external IPv6 ADSL connection that somebody has installed to make it easier for them to do their research and development work and so on. So the typical well-developed organizational security. So what we were dealing with there? On I think the total number of systems on this network was like 150. There were tens of Linux and Windows computers and Macs and whatever. And our main thing was to keep three things safe. There was also some wikis and Redmine and whatever. But there was WordPress, there was a Java web shop. Well, something that looked like the web shop but was mostly made of bugs and redundant code. And there was a custom PHP app that I think was somebody's diploma from Tallinn Technical University or somewhere. which did look like written by drunken pandas, but actually was very well designed, and I'm not allowed to go into too much detail because they said that I need to write new one, and I'm not sure if I can drink that much to write this thing. Everything looks nice and cool, of course. This is the WordPress site I was working with. And so what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, question.
What is wrong with the form? Why the message field is so open?
I think this is mostly the CSS question, and this as the makers of the system didn't consider the CSS of much of a challenge for us to solve. It may be also, maybe this picture is taken from the time where I had repaired the website. And there was no scoring for correct CSS, so it was off the scope. And there are, I'm coming to some other reasons that might be. I don't exactly remember from which point this picture is. So, the common attack vectors to this site. Actually, they told the WordPress was made just to give teams a possibility to protect at least something. It's a WordPress. Just fucking update it. So, it had, of course, vulnerable 4.7.1 WordPress version that had been having core vulnerability from, I think, March of that year. We were doing it in mid-April. There was a bunch of plugins that were either backdoored or out of date and had some vulnerabilities, or they were completely abandoned plugins. So what's an easiest thing to do is, I don't know, reinstall the plugin. Just get some intern to remove the plugins and put the new plugins, and you have the thing which is coming from the plugin repository, and everything is safe. It's not nice and safe. No. There were plugins that probably hadn't been ever discovered to be vulnerable, and there was no fix for them either because they were like last updated 7 years ago. Then small changes in code. Actually something which is, I think, very evil. If you look at this code, maybe it should be a bit bigger, but here's some kind of whatever database sentence, and it does look pretty common, but when you are seeing here, then somebody has changed the placement of some kind of, it has been a string which is going in there, and it is adding some data to the SQL sentence, probably creating SQL injection capability into this code. But just changing a couple of characters. So when the first samples, and some samples I'm going to show you about malicious code, do look malicious, cancerous on the first view, there is a ton of way of making minor changes to the code in a way to actually gain access. And I think in my WordPress case, there was, what I do in these cases is I diff the files. So this is actually done with Git for, I don't know, I kind of like it. So there were a lot of places where small changes like these were made, like not using the get variables, but using the request or something like that, and creating some new ways of vulnerabilities that somebody doesn't notice immediately. So basically what I have learned from that is the only code you can trust in production is the one that is basically checksums the same as you have in your version management. Oh, fun other things. This is actually from a GIF file, or GIF, or what's the correct one? I think there's a debate about that, which looks like completely legal, and then it has some PHP at the end. Turns out that it's pretty easy to configure your Apache or whatever web server to actually interpret whatever files that have the PHP start marker in them to be interpreted as PHP. So, which means that it's possible to have, I think I made here mention of minor configuration tweaks. So, whatever code, you have thought that, okay, GIF files, this is not my problem if somebody uploads a GIF file because who's going to execute that? Maybe your ops guys have a bit misconfigured the web server. Or maybe the malicious actor has done the fact that they have not hacked the code, but they have hacked just the Apache config file. And by uploading GIF files, you can have remote code execution. Well, I have been working with these things, and I'm mixing here some timelines. I'm putting in some things which are not from the log shields, but comparable, which are from real life, mostly because, as I mentioned, I'm not in the right to disclose all of the red team's secrets. What I'm showing has been cleared by them. This is actually one of my collections of bad code found in server. So everything here, I especially like, there is a favicon, there is some kind of binary code, there are something that looks probably like a temp file. I like the backups. This is especially cool. For example, especially in the PHP, if you have something like a config file, if the config file is named by your text editor into _PHP, then underscore backup, then it's not interpreted as PHP if the server is configured correctly, of course. And your passwords and everything are shown. I have a couple of examples of that coming later. The interesting thing and why I'm collecting these is I'm interested. There is one view from our customer side is that, okay, there is malicious code and maybe you have this antivirus or some kind of a tool. Just let's scan and find the malicious files and remove them. So I have been doing a couple of times a test where I have taken the set of fresh malicious files from web server and run them through different things. I think for whatever reason I'm missing from here virus total, but I think in some other table I have got also virus total. And I manually know they are bad files. And Nimbusec is a tool produced some Austrian startup that we are reselling. Ibolit is a Russian PHP analyzing script. Paranoid is Ibolit in paranoid mode or detecting more. Kutera is one WordPress plugin. Node32 is a antivirus. Dr. Web is antivirus, and CodMLS is another plugin. Number of threats found, and usually they are finding in the code case something like the 40–50% of the malicious code if there is 0 false positives. The finding rate went up with paranoid mode up to 90%, but there was as much non-malicious files tagged as malicious. So at the moment you are thinking about some, let's say, average user or average developer needing to deal with these false positives, they just say that screw you. And even with 90%, if you think you can clean or find something which is 90% accurate, then you are still going to leave 10% of backdoors on your system if you are doing anything but clean reinstall. How the process is going? Usually they have taken over the site and put on their backdoors and put on their let's say business code, something they are making money with. Now you find it and remove the code that you have found. They're usually coming back in 8 to 24 hours to look for, where's my code? Dude, where did you put my code? Why did you remove that? Bad guy. Usually some kind of robot is coming scanning first. If it is unsuccessful, then comes a guy who seems to be checking everything manually from some kind of table which lists what he or she must have on your system. And when they don't find you, they're just saying, okay, let's take this server off the charts, let's move on to the next job. So, but you need to be 100% because they know what they have put there and where exactly. So 90% detection rate is no good. Because what's inside these things? For example, this is this favicon icon. Favicon icon, I renamed it to text to be able to show. So again, some kind of obfuscated nice code to avoid easy detection. It's used by putting a nicely obfuscated include in wherever they please. I think configuration files are very nice places. And this one is actually very visible. Sometimes it's going in here. So inside the comment fields, there is some parts of PHP code and so on. So it can be hidden very well. No, yes, this is just my test system, so not from live one. Another one. Actually, finding these by detecting base64 decode is pretty easy. So they are making a lot of things to disguise all of these things. I especially like the comment here. Do not remove this file. The system will not work. Okay. There was also the question of the files which were named .suspect. So this antivirus has gone over all these files already. These are suspect files. You can just leave them here. Never leave anything that hasn't come from your production repository or that has come from your repository on the production systems. Because if you keep mess there, then who knows, whatever might be there. This is another nice example coming probably from Russian-speaking people, because they tend to have this Windows encodings and Windows Sphere, and most of the things are usually doing something like base64 decode and evaling something or other. Then this one is now cool. Turns out that, especially in PHP, there is a bunch of functions that can also cause execution. For example, before I think PHP 7, there was regular expression functions had the option E, which actually causes some things to be executed. And there is actually a ton of examples on the internet about ways to use seemingly very simple functions to actually provide shell access or remote code execution. That's another one. So there is a bunch of different things, and when you start to look at these, you're actually opening the file and you're always seeing that, okay, this one is a bit different. I actually, from visual perspective, I added that to somebody has gone to the length of actually designing the obfuscation with underscores. I think, and I think the number of underscores in each of these variables is different, so it's encoded by the number of underscores. So there is so many different ways of actually trying to fool all of these detection engines. And then there are more places where you can actually tune the things. About configuration. This is on the Apache side, the htaccess file, where you can just tell that if there are some numbers on the path, then you should access some kind of a file inside some folder and provide it some part of this value. Why it's important? It's important because when you're thinking, how could I protect my solution? You could practically say that, okay, let's just tell that we don't let the PHP execution in whatever CSS folders or something like that. It can't be executed, but it can be included, and I think it can be also run with rewrite rules from different part, because it's not exactly the same way. And here, just inside the regular rewrite rules, there is something else which I think is again malicious. I haven't seen that kind of a thing used for anything non-malicious in my life. Again, very small changes that give people access to files that they should not have access to. Okay, just another nice one. So the solution I'm doing always in these cases is just burn it down and redeploy. What could be a problem with that attitude? Especially considering we have like I don't know, 30-something companies' websites on our servers. Well, it usually turns out the discussion goes like that. I'm asking them in email from some project in Galaxy far away, so please provide me some kind of architecture of your software project which had to include PHP and Node.js and Express application and whatever. And the answer is usually, so we kind of don't know. We are just doing it ad hoc as it happens, and could you just help us deploy that? Which means that, I don't know. The situation, and some part of that should be on fire actually, but it doesn't show here. So in these situations, coming back and telling that, guys, let's just redeploy your application can come up as a great obstacle to actually getting your system working and cleaned up. So I'm doing it easier way, replace what can be replaced, and in case of the lock shield, fake the functionality of the rest. Of course, as I'm not paid by hour, I have my own tools. So for doing these things on WordPress, I have my own tool. This is just the help page of the things I can different ways do with the WordPress applications. It starts with, it includes things like creating a Git repository with the different line endings, doing the commits, and also doing updates and changes of all of the parts while making a Git commit in between each of the update cycles. So I'm basically able to take an application that's broken, that doesn't have source available or a clean version available, and update it part by part. I'm seeing in Git everything that has changed, and if needed, I can roll back any of the changes if it breaks some kind of functionality.
Is it written on PHP?
Ah. This?
Yes.
No, this is shell. This is actually my only ever written shell application, and I was already offered task to teach shell in Tallinn Technical University, which probably either shows that I'm a real shell ace, or maybe their requirements for teaching shell are not very high. It is using WordPress CLI for doing the actual job in the backend, but it just it's the summary of things. Did anybody else have a question?
Yes. Do you have it? Do you have the source code on the internet of that?
No, but you can call me or write me, and I'm happy.
That's not how open source works.
Ah.
This is not how open source works.
No, that's fucking how security works. Why the hell do you think I need to put all of my tools that I'm using open source? Or also on public places. I'm even afraid of leaving these on the servers I'm cleaning up. Because what if I have not been successful? This guy comes back from whatever, Tula or Moscow, they are usually coming, and finds my tools. I have considered having this distributed to all of our farms, so I have it easy to use, but no, I'm every time putting it myself and taking it away. So by putting security tools on your server, you should also make sure that if there is a risk of compromise, and if the server is connected to the internet, which is the definition of the web server, then there is a risk of compromise, and you should not leave your tools lying around, which is actually something which is the same thing about your your garage or whatever. Also, clean up your tools and make everything tidy. I'm not very good at that, but I'm trying to be good at that. Unfortunately, what we didn't find 0 days or something like that. So basically, most of the things were fixable by updating the plugins and or maybe replacing them with something with comparable functionality, and making sure that scoring system is happy with that. I was thinking to be helping them this year. So I actually have prepared for some school guys a small competition, and everybody can later at home take their beers and try that. And here is a possibility to get a real WordPress, it's not actually 0-day, but it is a WordPress plugin that is still in the repository, and it has a security problem which is totally facepalmable. It has so stupid thing, and it is exactly the right thing to start experimenting with. So when you go to, there is a site called hack.ee, but A is number 4. So you can just register here, and you will be given a brand new droplet on DigitalOcean that you can try to find out what's the vulnerability. Why I'm also using these examples and why I'm using this, especially this example, is that there is always a question with all of these things that where do I start here? So if somebody goes there and tries to click register, it probably won't work. So what are you going to do if the registration doesn't work on the website?
Just close it.
No, but there are dragons.
Slash register.
Press register. No.
No, slash register. Or slash admin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is also a possibility. Something else? Yes, exactly. So usually most of the things start off with looking at the code, and usually when you are looking at all of these great exercises, there is some kind of hint. So this one has a disabled button, and then there is some more with creating a field for entering your email. And when you are successful, you will be given a very nicely, by the way, video game themed named server. For example, my one this time is psychedelic ice in my pocket, whatever that means, and also a animal named name. And when you open it, you will be on the website. This is actually running in a couple of seconds from registrations. And it looks like a default WordPress. It has instructions what to do, and it probably has some hints. Again, if it looks like base 64, then probably it is base 64. Oh, and if you want, by the way, here are some other cool places to try out. Some of them are some companies HR themed employment, or just a talent finding site, but non-related to me, but I have been having real fun solving their puzzles, and I think this is something, if you want to learn more about the opposing side, then trying to solve the puzzles is cool. So here, when you go to see the trick, the explanation, the code will be come on, did I press it? Or did I press Facebook like?
Scroll down.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah. One should never ask plus indexes or minus indexes. If you Google that, then turns out that it's something from, again, Apache configuration, and plus indexes means that all of the directories are going to have indexes in them. So, finding what plugins we need to hack. Probably you can find out what are the plugin folders in the WordPress. Perhaps you can find something which is indexable. Perhaps when you know the plugin name, you can actually download it from internet. You can see what are the components. And this exercise is actually solvable completely without any external tools. You don't need to have curl or any command line tools. You can just hack the site and get admin access or remote code execution, whatever you want, remote shell, from just your browser's inspector. I know guys who have done that from just given the first given the first URL in half an hour, and they have been web developers. So everybody who is better than web developer should be doing it Well, at least in half an hour, or maybe 2, because if it takes it 2 hours or 3 hours the first time, the solving of the first round of exercises tends to take longer. And while you are learning and doing these, you're starting to see patterns, and you're starting to solve the puzzles faster and faster, and you're getting to know more about that. That's like doing whatever sport, like running. At first you're running very slow and everybody's running faster than you, and then at some point you are starting to understand that, oh, guys, I can do that, I can run, cool. So, and this was a good one because it was made by me, so I was at the discretion of showing some of the ways of getting into it without anybody telling that, Peter, why you are showing, we are going to use that on something and so. But try to go it through and find at least what is the plugin. That servers will be killed in some time. Because this is, this is another interesting file I found from a hacked file. There was a guys from, if anybody knows about WebArcs, these are some startup guys doing some kind of security product, and their method of fighting hackers is leaving README files, which is not a very effective process. The Java web shop, it had vulnerable components. The worst part of that was it was accessible over WebSockets. I had imagination if it's being accessed just by URL or let's say get and post parameters or whatever, I can put in front of that some kind of web application firewall and just whitelist everything that is needed and do something like that. But no, they had put in the WebSockets. And I had nobody in our team had any idea how to monitor correctly and modify and block WebSocket solutions. So if you are developing something and want to screw up your security guys in your company real hard, then please do use WebSockets. And take unsanitized input from WebSockets. Whatever is going, because it's WebSockets, it's very secure, you can just go with that direct to SQL. And of course, forgotten code. This is a place which I think last year I think there was Joomla problems related to, in the latest versions of Joomla, relating to some forgotten code in some classes that was possible to be used in forums to create access to everything. So that's actually the applications from last year. I'm keeping it in a folder named trash for some reason. It probably was pretty much a trash.
It is prefixed with negation mark.
Yes, to be in the front.
Okay, but as a programmer, I read it not trash.
As a content manager, I'm just getting it to the top of the list. Because as you see, I am a very organized person myself. But there was something called Batik, which had some nice vulnerabilities from 2015. So if somebody is uploading SVG image for conversion to PNG or JPG, then it, I think, basically gave them a possibility to read files and create denial of service. There were some other things. Fortunately, they had not had time to include the latest Batik problems there. My problem was that, of course, there was no source code. Okay, the first thing you're going to a server which doesn't have source code is you look everywhere. Because it is possible somebody has forgotten the source code there. In my case, I found it from the main user's downloads folder. I think it was in the downloads folder or somewhere. I did found the source code of the previous version. So I had actually very good ways to inspect everything that went in there. I also was able to find from, I think it was something like download history or something, a name of the file, which was SVG exploit. So I knew how they are going to come in, just by looking at this. Unfortunately, I know exactly nothing about Java, so I used the pizza approach. So I called my friend Heikki, who is working in Icefire, and asked to grab his wife and son and come over because I'm going to make some pizza. And while wives and kids were having pizza, we set up the way to learn how to debug Java and work with things, because he has been working with that. I think the dream he's explaining here is the result of looking at the work we did. So if there is a need to translate that into English, that he had a dream. I need to direct in Tallinn Harbor's A terminal a passenger airplane by waving hands, and it was made more complicated by having a gasoline cistern attached. He talked to the pilot. It was an older lady from India who said that for some reason the truck drivers are not allowed to drive airplanes. So it's exactly the confusion level of the things when you are working in a system which is created by people just to trick you into letting them hack into that. So patch, remove unused code, put some web application firewall in front of that for other things except the WebSocket thing that I had patched, and when it crashes, just restart. When the blondes are calling that their web shop is not working, then just restart it, because I had broken something and I didn't have during the live exercise time to fix it more. And then there was a custom PHP application which had mostly everything in a way like that. So it was completely SQL injectable. Andres took that one and spent, I think, full day. We got it just a day before exercise. There was just basically 24 hours to fix it, and it was huge. And to sanitize all of the inputs and find all of the things, find all of the configuration problems. So if something seems to be usually denied, then it was, of course, in this configuration allow. And again, something which is visually very difficult to notice unless you are knowing exactly what kinds of tricks you are going to see. Because if it's the wrong way of allowing, this is actually not from exercise, but from a live site. Another example, if somebody has not set up the way of blocking .env, and there happens to be a configuration file there, then it can be very easily read. So very nice things, because dot means it's hidden. You don't know, you can't access that. I don't know. Why? You're not seeing it in just ls or something like that. So. And I especially like these security salts, generate me, that rocks. So, and this is actually from a live site of something else. And then I actually, I can't tell about the more complicated backdoors, I picked some of my own. I was doing some training for Estonian Cyber Olympics youth team last September, and I wrote them some applications, some WordPress installs which were getting external traffic, so they needed to learn to log the traffic, find how the attacks are coming in, and find the backdoors. They were actually pretty good, so we did, I think we did 2-hour practice, and they solved most of the teams solved most of the problems. Very cool. Usually, and then they are the top Estonian guys. Everybody else is. I've met these guys later on this competition I did in Tartu. I saw somebody getting in, and when I went back and looked at some kind of fingerprints or foot marks or something, I found that, okay, that was a guy from Cyber Olympics. So full school, did nothing, and then there was one guy from this level who got in. So there is worth training or use to actually know how to hack. So I made them some very simple things to start off by just taking post parameters, and I think there was also one with get parameters that is making it possible to execute shell and get something back nicely formatted thanks to pre tags in HTML. and it's easy to see how to find the malicious request from the gets. Post is more complex because it's usually not logged. But again, we were talking about some tricks of including some, in PHP you can configure some scripts to run before the main code, and it's very easy to log your posts and everything there. So we were doing things like these. And then I made my own shell, which is some kind of translation whatever, and does a lot of magic with different things, and probably if you're looking, it does look just like not sense making. It doesn't look malicious, but when you're looking at that, you're probably going to tell that what is this thing? Well, it's probably doing some numerology or something like that. Holistic view of something or that, CRC32, whatever, I don't know. So something like that. Actually what it does is it takes a couple of random headers from HTTP request by doing some checksums, finds which header might be the one which is containing the I think encoded code that they need to be executing, and then executing the code. Why I did that was exactly because the people are thinking about things like, okay, we can put some kind of firewall in front of that. No, I can probably get around your firewall. I can communicate with my backend backdoor code in your system by providing the information bit by bit, or by using some things you're probably not logging, and so on. So there are ways of getting in, but the guys were very smart. In 2 hours they had solved all of the tasks and been able to find a way to create, also to generate the request. They also cracked how the code was generated, and basically were able to, if they would have wished to write a block for this kind of particular thing. Again, in LogShield there was also a case of application which exactly was communicating with some very weird input, with something residing somewhere in the back of the system. Oh, by the way, and this one also is completely sitting inside the WordPress typical configuration, or typical whatever plugin module, or wherever. It doesn't look malicious. It looks like a code, and it hooks itself completely into the WordPress infrastructure and is able to process, I don't know, Ajax or whatever requests very nicely. There is no pattern in log files. I can be accessing whatever pages and providing these pieces of header to communicate with my malicious code. Actually, while I was while we wrote this code, as I wrote it late in the evening, I wanted to test if it works on other hosting providers also. So we loaded up it to some things. This is currently simulated because I'm not telling where it happened, and we found that there are different customer folders on the same server. I can't list the other customers' folders, but I'm able to do things like these. Wow! Meaning we were just experimenting with a PHP shell, and we found that we are able to do lateral movement from one user to another. So the problems in the configurations are very common. So the view of the typical hosting server is something like that. There are customers, and they are divided by Linux user rights, and if you can move from one place to another. Okay, this was that. So basically, how are we time-wise? I should be probably...
Have a little time.
Yeah, okay. I have also a little, I think, 100 slides or something like that.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. Well, at least we're on the same slide. So, Tanter's Internet, different circles of serious internet business and not so serious internet business. So what were the things that we went through? Actually, the most important thing when you are thinking about your code which is running somewhere is try to take a more holistic view of the environment and think of all of the stack which is under you. Yes, you are using very good frameworks. I know frameworks are sanitizing everything and there is no SQLi and something. The amount to get through your firework or framework or maybe bypass that might not be that big. Don't trust anything. Always assume there is a way to be compromised. And also, as was the example with these client folders, we had a discussion today with a IT security manager who told that you could actually use these different clients under one account. What's the problem of having them under one account? And I said, like, I don't know, you are the IT security manager or something like that. No, just explain me. And I said that, I don't know, have you ever tried in your command line doing cd ... and ls and finding that if there are no writes, you can see everybody's files. When I'm looking at the PHP code of some of the malware, it actually works in a way that when it launches, the first thing is it goes to the starts going up in the folder tree and looking for all PHP code and then planting the backdoors. So the first thing in the first run of the code is go plant the backdoors and then start executing whatever was needed. So if anything is running on the same writes, it's a total mess. And most of the things which often are happening is that, okay, let's take just a VPS. And I'm seeing, I have different statistics that I don't have on slides today, but I went and scanned a bunch of VPSs, and actually the level of updates and security tends to be pretty miserable. So, usually, access to application via routing, because there is a possibility to hook into the routing, like I did with my fake plugin or whatever, directly by just accessing some files. Very common in PHP, less common in some other things, but also in Java there can be some views which are doing things that you have forgotten there are doing something via malicious path or something, passing parameters via all kinds of weird ways, mixing get, post and cookies, which is one of the great vices, but especially with PHP, where you have a possibility of configuring in which order they are processed. Again, one of nice places to plant in the malicious code to do something. Headers, user agents, referrers, which are very great place of hiding whatever you don't want people to see in the log files. Keeping sessions and snooping sessions. This is something that can be done. User authentication, which I didn't see there. I think we had also some user authentication cases, but this is my favorite from a very well-known site called CV Estonia, CV Online, Cv.ee, where we had a discussion on Facebook, and their developer told that we are very secure, everything is passed over HTTPS. And people came to me that, Peter, please look, we told that it's not secure, but they are telling it's secure. Could it be possible they are right? Of course not. For a long time I had a demonstration application as a way of CVE login. It was possible to log in. This is the capture by Wireshark. And I think here is nicely visible my password. But even better is that it's possible to force the value of session ID. It's not reset on the login. It's not secure, so it's possible to leak it over, for example, unprotected Wi-Fi and something else. So for I think 1.5 years I was using on most of the conferences a way of people, if you want to leave feedback to my presentation, You see the secret cookie, just go and leave it right on my CV. Just don't post anything that's illegal, because they probably find out your IP. They fixed it a couple of months ago, and then I had to find next one. This was Tallinn city government. I was giving a similar lecture to Tallinn management about things, and Thomas Sepp, the city secretary, came 5 minutes before presentation to me and said, could you demonstrate something based on our systems? I said, it's 5 minutes to stage. It's impossible to find anything vulnerable in your systems. And then I said that, oh, wait, let's try this one thing. And of course, Tallinn city, all of the, I think this is from the main services portal, which has like 500. And they have different sub portals, and all they had the problem of having the forced cookie and being able to grab the sessions even if you're doing the login with mobile ID or ID card. So this was this is the level. So I was able to, in the 5 minutes before the presentation, to find the vulnerability and prepare the next slides, or actually a live demo of showing them. A bit difficult thing to discuss to non-technical people, but anyway. Oh, talking to database. There are various ways of talking to database. Sometimes it can be via completely legal user interface. But what could be possibly going wrong? Oh, there is a database talking back to me. Possibly with a very interesting mistakes from yet another site from which I have a video. So this is edasi.org website, and I'm just browsing here. Wow. I'm going to the next page, and I'm logged into the WordPress admin. Okay, just live sites. Unfortunately, can't do anything. Why it was? It was because of misconfigured caches. So somebody had managed to cache the situation of the page when they were logged in. Cache management is very difficult.
I experienced the same effect, should I say, on Aura, Tartu Aura WhatsApp once when I just signed in, clicked random link, turned out to be a sign in admin. Like tried that price page. It did update.
And it was probably written with a very nice framework.
I think
which
so,
we did everything correctly. So and what you could tell the database to do, in addition to show you some things. Oh, this is the one I didn't know before Logshield, but which is very cool. So actually, this is WordPress's user metadata table. And what could be a malicious use of that, for example? This is the database structure of MySQL. I can register a user and?
Make it admin.
No, this means a bit. Let's say I'm not getting admin. There is one very stupid thing in database design visible here. There is a long text field. So basically, by just starting posting some data into user profile into their bio field or something else, I can create the situation where I can DOS the SQL server. This was something that was done to us on Logshield 2017. We learned it hard way, so this is something that I'm really finding stupid that it's everywhere. Oh, talking via API, accepting mixing code and data. This is something which is especially for PHP. Result is something like that when you mix code and data. It's spaghetti code and Mr. C long that. Hedgehogs, yeah. Spaghetti code and hedgehogs. To summarize, I have one more demo and something to take away and try at home today or tomorrow or whenever you like. Namely, there was one of this very simple thing which was but there is, I think, a very good learning tool for developers is OWASP Jewish Shop. Has anybody tried that? One, okay. what it is also designed to be a vulnerable application. It has probably all of the mistakes you can imagine, and it is something where you can try to beat the developer and actually get in. There are also, actually, I think all of the problems have somewhere on the internet the solutions. So if you are feeling like you're totally stuck and you can't waste another 5 hours with the same problem, then just Google. It's not a kind of school task that you're not allowed to cheat. You're only cheating yourself. And if you are cheating at the beginning and getting better at finding the problems, then I'm totally fine with that. So, how to get into the OWASP juice shop and how it looks like. There are various ways of running it. I think the most easier one, if you are going to looking for OWASP juice shop, then here is easy to install, and the easiest way is using Heroku. So make yourself a Heroku account, come back here and click the deploy. It will deploy it in Heroku in their whatever their droplets are called. It will clone the repo, build the application and run. So you're going to have it running in Heroku. So I have it as an example to prove that it's possible. That's my Pets Choice Heroku app. I think in Heroku you need to create your own name for that, but then it's yours. You can run it, and it's running on these free instances very nicely. And okay, there is of course a cookie consent. I hope they're going to send me also a reminder about privacy policy soon. And then what next?
Then you open developer tools.
Yeah, good answer, exactly. Inspector, yeah. First, like there is in Kali Linux. Does anybody know Kali Linux? One, oh, okay, well, 10. So, what is the motto of Kali Linux? Huh? No. The quieter you become, the more you hear. Scout around, look, feel, start to see what are the parts. Don't think, it isn't a speed sports, at least not now. In K-Space, they are also planning to do some kind of different capture the flag events to get you to think quick. But at the beginning, you just go and look around and think that, okay, what could be? And I can tell you that the first task is to find out where is the scoring port. There is a scoring port, and you can somehow find it from here. And okay, now I showed you the URL. Probably you can just write it down, but try to find actually how to get in there. You're getting to a really nice scoring board, which is starting to have exercises with different difficulty levels. I think the first ones should be very easy to start with. And they go like that. So there is, for example, cross-site scripting. There should be a way of getting somehow the JavaScript to display the alert box on the site. If you want, each of these, when you click, I think it also opens a bit deeper explanation. And then if the explanation or hint isn't enough, you can probably go and Google and find if somebody can help you, or you can maybe just try thinking a bit more, or maybe solving a different exercise and coming back to that, or maybe coming back to the exercise tomorrow morning after sleeping. And I've found actually that sleeping and solving the problems in the morning is often a very good thing. Apparently your brain is somehow processing the problems during the night. So, okay, let's do one of these. I don't want to show too much, but we need to, the cross-site scripting is that we, yeah, okay. we can do something like that. Not usually. It happens when you are inputting the code somewhere in the field, and because it's not sanitized when it's outputted back into the browser after doing the search, then you are going to get the result, and you are going to get the result on your scoreboard. Your score is kept on the system. It's I think there is a SQLite database. So if you kill the server, put it up, then and you have the cookie in the browser, you can get back into your session and continue hacking. So something you can completely in peace open up in the next week and continue and try having your evening beers and just thinking that, oh, there was talk about cross-site scripting. What the heck might be that? So with that, I'm finishing this today's presentation. One more thing. Sorry. There was a question about book size suggest reading, and especially on the personal developer side, there is a really good book called Badass, Making Users Awesome by Kathy Serra, which talks about psychology of learning. So it's good for you, and it's good for you when you're trying to market to some people, or maybe you're trying to do game development. Learn in small steps that are not too hard, because too hard learning will drive you away from that. Try to get feedback quickly. This is exactly why this Jewish shop is very, very nice. So it gives you the nice marks. You are getting, you are seeing the progress, and you have help. And then you're repeating it on the next level, which is harder, and then harder, and then harder, which is exactly the same way you're doing whatever kind of training. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions, so
You can just go hacking.
Yes, try to catch Peter before he leaves the building.
Elvis,
That's
Peter.
it for this time. Next event is June 5. June 5 will be Geek Out special. A small teaser for us, for you guys. And thank you for coming despite such a nice weather. And see you next time.